Sugar playing hooky like Bonnie and Clyde, they better book me. Those were the days, all fun and games, skipping the fair, catching the train to where it took me. Step through the city in these Harlem nights, all the lights had me feeling like my game tight like Ray Rice with the Scarlet Knights. I used to roll the dice, gamble with my life with so many things I never thought twice. Tony Eyes used to get mad from the block parties in the riff-raff, leaving all the trash in a gift bag, drop it off, leave it on the stoop while we ran off and laughed in cahoots. All fun and games till the gig is over, bumping Criminal Minds till the bridge is over. I remember the battle ciphers gathered in Crotona. In Africa, Bambaataa really showed us how to master the track. Not only that, but how to master your path. I could never break dance, but I mastered my craft. Getting my hands on Paid in Full was a classic to have. And the rhyme goes on, I perfected the jab, blending some jazz with some boogaloo. From one into another on the tables, yelling copy go. Remember, like it's out the blue, deja vu. This ain't a dream if it happened to you.
There's something about this beat that keeps reminding me of my New York City dreams. I was only 17, literally a dancing queen, forever young. I thought I'd be forever young. I remember it's the boogie down breeze, chasing after my
680 Tinton Avenue, apartment 15A. When I Was Nuyorican by Isabella Bey. I remember the posters plastered on my bedroom wall, not of pop stars or movie idols, but of heroes who could do the impossible. I wanted to be Edie's Chacon, shaking her hips and commanding attention. Then it shifted. I'd practice poses in the mirror, imagining a golden lasso in my hand, becoming Wonder Woman. But deep down, what I craved was the power of hydraulics, the strength of steel. I wanted to be the bionic woman, leaping over cars, rebuilding myself unstoppable. And the swagger, the cool, the coordinated strikes, that was us. My sisters and I were the Charlie's Angels. At least in my innocent and juvenile mindset, I was fearless. Then, the screams. My mother's sharp and raw, tearing through the thin walls of our apartment. It was the sound that always prefaced the thudding, the muffled curses, the crashing. I'd curl up on my bed, pulling my knees to my chest, and the fantastical images would blur. Suddenly, I wasn't a superhero. I was Marsha Brady, or Jan, maybe even Cindy. They had their problems, sure, but they never sounded like this. They had a stable family, a dad who didn't make mom cry. They had sunny afternoons, not police sirens. The blue and white of the patrol car became a familiar sight in front of St. Anselm's Catholic Church, adjacent to 680 Tinton Avenue, every weekend. It seemed they'd be there. My mother, her face bruised, her arm in a sling, talking in hushed tones to officers. My stepfather, looking sullen and angry, always getting into the back of the car with a dismissive wave. It was a cycle of arguments that escalated, blows that landed, and the sterile smell of the emergency room clinging to her clothes when she finally came home. "Izzy, can you get my purse?" my mother would ask, her voice raspy, after the police had left. I'd retrieve it from the chipped formica table, my hands trembling slightly. "Just stay with your sisters, okay?" My sisters, they were my anchors. Maya, the oldest, always the stoic one, her eyes too old for her years, would gather us close. Chloe, the second youngest, would bury her face in Maya's shoulder, her small body shaking. I tried to distract them to recite the latest hip-hop beats we heard drifting from open project windows. The Sugar Hill Gang was heard on the streets, and it was like medicine served in our small, crowded space. John Adam houses, NYCHA. I could still see the train elevator passing through on Westchester Avenue. The boogie down Bronx or the burnt down Bronx, depending who was saying it, was the backdrop to everything I ever knew as a child. I knew I was in the gold mine as I heard so much great music like hip hop being raised by all ethnicities in the boogie, with so much salsa music and dancing taking place in every other apartment. Every time the elevator would go local, stopping on each floor, I smelled hip hop. I smelled salsa. I also smelled the nasty burning of what may have been crack. And Lord knows what other drugs were being cooked and taken. The fifth floor, to me, reminded me of New Jack City, as it was the Nino Brown operation floor. The 11th floor was peaceful, but 15A, the 15th floor, was hell. I remember as the elevator would make its way to the 15th floor, I felt the nervous energy in my stomach since my discernment began at the age of 7 years old. I always knew when something was going to happen. I never knew how to verbalize it or even process it. Reflecting on this right now brings tears to my eyes when I think of my godmother, who would often take me for the weekends to spend time with her, and it was so peaceful. I didn't feel that nervousness when I was with her and my God family. However, when it was Sunday and I gathered my things for her to bring me back home, I still feel the tension and fear unsettled in the pit of my stomach. The gut feeling of fearing what could be happening or what is going to happen once the elevator stops on the 15th floor. The graffiti on the stairwells, the distant wail of ambulances, the constant tough love, energetic boogie down streets. To me, it was a chaos that I called home. And it was just New York City. It was the only world I knew. One afternoon, after another incident, Maya sat us down. "We gotta look out for each other, okay?" she said, her voice firm. "No matter what." "But what if they come back? The police? They never keep him in jail," Chloe whispered, tears welling up. "We'll be fine," I said, trying to sound confident. I think as an Aquarian child, I was quite the emotionally intelligent one, without letting anyone know that I knew these things. I didn't know how to verbalize it, but in the pit of my stomach, I sensed it. Like when I discovered toys hidden in mommy's bedroom closet, which was a very deep closet. I was playing hide and seek, and one day I hid in that closet and found all the Christmas gifts she was going to wrap up and say it was Santa Claus. I kept quiet. I never told anyone. I knew there was no Santa when I was 6 or 7 years old. It was at that age of 7 years old that I started feeling the discernment within cultivating underneath within my young avatar. Though my stomach was a knot of dread mixed with a grilled cheese sandwich Maya made from that big block of government cheese Mom received from the center, we're stronger than they think. I thought of Bionic Woman's bionic arm, Wonder Woman's unwavering strength. "You think so?" Maya asked, looking at me. "Yeah," I replied, forcing a smile. "We're like a team, like the Charlie's Angels, but just us." I saw a spark of hope in her eyes. Chloe was also a sweet and such innocent sister, it hurt me to hear her at night when she slept. She always grinded her teeth from the fight or flight and trauma we were all being served in our home. I kept telling myself that the toxicity was a small thing, and we were children with flimsy armor against the chaos. But it was ours, our family's chaos. We would soon build our own strength, our own resilience, right here in apartment 15A. The familiar thumping echoed through the thin walls, a sound I had come to associate with the tightening in our own chests. Maya, our oldest, sat cross-legged on the cold floor, her knuckles against her knees. Her stare was fixed on the door, a strange, hard expression in her eyes that I started to see more and more often. "He's doing it again," Maya stated, her voice flat. It wasn't a question. It never was. The sound from the other room was a confirmation, a horrific sound that dictated our lives. Maya could feel the telltale wetness starting to spread on her own underwear, a familiar, shameful dampness that clung to her like a second skin. Mom would often beat Maya for peeing the bed when she slept. But why hit Maya? That's not her fault. It was their dysfunction that was causing my older sister to wet the bed from fear of watching Mom's eye bleed every other weekend. Chloe, beside me, grinding her teeth. A tiny, sharp clicking sound that was almost lost in the chaotic sounds of violence. As usual, I was already retreating, my eyes half closed, the heavy veil of my depression pulling me under. We need to do something, Maya continued, her voice gaining a low intensity. Something he can't ignore, something that will put him away for good. She looked at us. Her eyebrows were higher than usual, sweeping over my lumped form and then settling on me. We have to make sure it's bad enough, so bad they can't deny it. I swallowed, the lump in my throat feeling enormous. The image Maya painted in my mind was vivid, a sickeningly realistic tableau. What do you mean, Maya? I managed to ask, my voice raspy, nervous whisper. The pool, she said, her eyes narrowing. The pool of blood. We need to make it look like she's really hurt. Really, really hurt. She picked up one of my mother's neglected beauty school dolls from the corner, its synthetic hair a tangled mess. We can use this to show them, Chloe finally spoke, her voice tight. Show them what? How bad it is? Maya replied, already turning the doll over in her hands. We'll draw the bruises on her, the lumps, the stitches, and then she paused, crying as she walked into the kitchen drawer where Ruby, our stepdad, kept his tools. We'll pin her nose like Lincoln Hospital did when he broke her nose the last time. Remember how she cried and cried too loud? My stomach churned. The thought of deliberately marring the doll, turning it into a grotesque representation of our mother's suffering, felt wrong. Yet Maya's conviction was absolute. She was the one who was peeing in the bed after all. She was the one who felt it most acutely. It has to be real, Maya insisted, picking up a red crayon from a scattered collection on the floor. We have to make it look real. She began to draw thick, angry lines appearing on the doll's plastic cheek. I watched, a growing sense of dread mingling with a desperate, twisted hope. Meanwhile, I had curled onto myself, breathing, shallow, already miles away in the fog of my own sorrow. Maya then retrieved a safety pin, its silver shiny sharp and menacing in the dim light. She pressed it firmly into the doll's plastic nose, securing it with a deliberate twist. Chloe, who had been silently observing, now picked up a blue crayon. Her movements, precise as she added angry, swollen, marks around the doll's eye. It was a shared act, a grim collaboration born from a shared trauma, a silent scream directed at the perpetrator of our fractured reality. The doll, once a symbol of glamorous aspiration, was now a canvas for us, for our silent, desperate plea for intervention. The weight of exhaustion settled over us. A thick blanket on a summer night, Maya, Chloe, and I, huddled together on the couch, succumbed to sleep. The silence that followed was unexpected, a void where his usual presence used to be. 2 weeks stretched into a quiet eternity, the house breathing a sigh of relief, or so it seemed. Then the silence fractured. He was back. Mom, ever the caregiver, had prepared his favorite, a seafood salad, the scent of octopus filling the air. It was a strange homecoming, marked not by warmth, but by a palpable tension that coiled in the corners of the room. Maya, Chloe, Izzy, get ready, Mom announced, her voice tight. Chrissy's birthday party. On the 19th floor, I enjoyed visiting Mamacita's apartment. She was very kind. Mamacita's apartment, high above the confines of our South Bronx community, pulsed with Eric B. and Rakim flowing, made the speakers clap back. Mamacita, her familiar smile, greeted us with a forced smile. Bigote, her boyfriend, whose mustache reminded me of Chef Boyardee's, stood by the doorway, his arms crossed. Ruby, a whirlwind of nervous energy, hovered nearby. The 19th floor, a place of celebration, had become a backdrop to a life altering event, forever etched in my memory. Happy birthday, Chrissy! Maya chirped, presenting a brightly wrapped gift. Chloe offered a shy wave as the party started. A different kind of drama unfolded below. A commotion erupted outside the building. I caught a glimpse from the panoramic window of the living room, and there Bigote and Ruby, a familiar scene of revolú, in Spanish which means discord, were locked in a furious argument. Bigote was waving a butcher's knife at Ruby, who opened the trunk to his 1978 Burgundy Nova, grabbed a small baseball bat, and swung at Bigote's knees in a desperate arc. Bigote stumbled, his balance lost, and as he fell, his head connected, impacting against the metal garbage cans. He was laid out on the pavement. He didn't move. Bigote had a steel plate in his head. As he hit the garbage cans, it caused an immediate death. I couldn't believe what I saw from the 19th floor apartment window. Bigote and Ruby looked like ants, yet I saw it all. The party continued. Some of the children were oblivious, but for me, the world had tilted. I saw Ruby being led away, his face a mask of shock and something I couldn't quite decipher, but I knew Bigote was dead. Later that evening, the news spread like wildfire. Bigote was dead. Ruby was arrested. The news hit Mamacita like a physical blow. Her friendship with Mom, a bond that had weathered years, dissolved in the face of this tragedy. Can you believe it? Mamacita's voice, laced with a bitter accusation, waltzed in my mind. Ruby beats your mother. Now he killed my Bigote. Ay, Dios mío, Bigote está muerto. I could have sworn I heard the gossipy chatter, the bochinche, whispers starting soon after. The murderer's children, they called us. At least that's what I thought I heard. Or maybe my juvenile mind was exasperated from all the fight or flight and hypervigilance that never seemed to end. The silence had once been a relief, was how now heavy with a different kind of weight, a burden of association I never asked for. The octopus salad, once a favorite, now tasted like ashes. The 19th floor, a place of celebration, had become a backdrop to a life-altering event. Forever etched in my memory. Months had passed since Ruby's release from incarceration, a consequence of a self-defense incident. During that time, the previously inseparable bond between mother and Mamacita had fractured. They were no longer speaking. Their friendship dissolved. The evening in question began with my mother and Ruby preparing to go dancing. I heard the familiar slam of the staircase door, followed by the sharp, rhythmic click of my mother's stilettos receding down the hallway. Then, silence. Minutes later, A small, insistent knock banged on my door. It was Ralph, my 7-year-old neighbor, his face a picture of an alarm. Your mom is on the floor, he stammered, his voice faintly speaking. She's bleeding from her head. She looks dead. My stomach lurched. I opened the door, and the sight that greeted me was stark and horrific. I felt like I was looking at one of Michael Myers' victims in the movie Halloween. My mother was on the floor, a dark pool spreading beneath her head, the metallic tang of blood filling the air. Beside her, a golf club. The image, so sudden and violent, immediately conjured a single name in my mind: Mamacita. Adrenaline surged through me. I sprint towards the staircase, my athleticism propelling me up multiple steps with each stride. I reached the 19th floor in a blur of motion, my hands pounding against Mamacita's door. Mamacita! I yelled, my voice ragged. Mom! She looks dead! We need help! While I was still speaking, Mamacita's door swung open, and I prayed in that second that my sister Chloe had called the paramedics. I prayed that she didn't remain in shock. Though Chloe was a year older than me, the sight of blood caused her to falter. I can't, she murmured, turning away. Maya was not present. She had spent the night at a Wilders. Without hesitation, I moved to Mamacita's side. I'll go with you, I said, addressing Mamacita directly. I'll ride with Mom. I took a moment to transform into a Charlie's Angel, a Wonder Woman, a Bionic Woman. After all, this was my mother. I kept replaying my speed to get to Mamacita's apartment fast enough. I prayed that Mom would make it. The ambulance ride was surreal. Journey through that afternoon to Lincoln Hospital. My mother, unconscious, laid beside me in that stretcher, her blood a startling cherry red against the sterile white of the stretcher. It was in that dysfunctional reality, with my mother's life hanging in the balance, that the chasm between my mother and Mamacita began to bridge. Mamacita's immediate response, her swift call for help, had been a lifeline. The ordeal solidified their connection, a fragile piece forged in the crucible of emergency. My mother, having been saved by Mamacita, found their friendship rekindled. I was grateful for Ralph and Mamacita. I thanked God in every light that shined on me. I proceeded to practice being a Wonder Woman, a Bionic Woman, and a Charlie's Angel. Every time I heard salsa, I converted into Iris Chacon while coping with the dysfunction I witnessed in 680 Tinton Avenue, apartment 15A. My sisters and I, as adults, have participated in therapy sessions. While we were having a conversation about the trauma we experienced in our childhood, the therapist explained the following. Resilience isn't just a passive trait, it's an active process. It's the constant, deliberate effort to navigate a toxic environment, to find safety where there is none, to maintain a sense of self amidst the erosion of one's reality. She paused, taking a sip of her tea. Your mother. She was remarkable in that way. She shielded you from the worst of it, built these little pockets of normalcy, like fortresses within the chaos. The mention of my mother always brought a somber note into our conversations. Ruby, our stepdad, had been a volatile presence, his outbursts and unpredictable behavior a constant source of terror. The domestic violence was not merely physical. It was a pervasive emotional and psychological assault that seeped into every corner of our lives. I had seen the subtle markers on Maya, the way she flinched and sudden noises, the ingrained weariness in her eyes that sometimes flickered through even our most comfortable exchanges. I understood this, as I was an emotional disturbance, as I quickly felt my nervous system overworking with instability. I often received a smack on my face from my mom because I continuously dropped a cup or a plate from shaking out of fear, not knowing I was becoming a nervous wreck. It's not just about surviving, I mused, my voice soft. It's about the strategies one develops for children in these environments. It's often about becoming hypervigilant, constantly scanning for danger, learning to anticipate and appease. It's a remarkable cognitive adaptation, though at an immense personal cost. I remembered recounting a childhood memory, hiding in a closet, clutching a worn hoodie, listening to the sounds of raised voices, the shattered of glass, the sheer terror etched into my small frame. And the taint? Maya said, her voice barely above a whisper. That's what it is, feels like, doesn't it? A stain that's impossible to wash away. We carry the imprint of that fear, that uncertainty, into everything. It affects how we trust, how we form relationships, how we see ourselves in the world. Even when we're out of the environment, the toxic echoes remain. I looked down at my now adult hands, my knuckles tightly fisted. I still have to actively remind myself that the world outside isn't a minefield, that a raised voice doesn't automatically mean impending danger. I remember my sisters and I glowing with survival auras as we sat in silence for a moment, the weight of unspoken histories hanging in the air, the scientific understanding of trauma's impact on the developing brain, the altered stress responses that heightened amygdala activity provided a framework, a detached analysis of the biological mechanisms at play. But it was our lived experiences, our quiet strength in recounting these events, that made the scientific abstractly human. I knew there was a reason why I loved science. I felt that it lacked emotion and it helped me to process pain without the emotional residue. It's a constant negotiation, I said, breaking the silence, between the learned responses of survival and the conscious desire for a different reality. It's like having two competing operating systems running simultaneously. We almost forgot we were sitting in a therapy session. The therapist offered a small, almost imperceptible smile. But the newer operating system, the one built on learning, on self care, on connection, it can eventually override the old one. It takes time, effort, and support, but it's possible. She looked at me, her expression elegantly steady. That's what friendships like your mother's and Mamacita depicted in a way. They're the external support systems that reinforce that newer operating system. They offer a glimpse of a stable, nurturing reality, which in turn strengthens the internal capacity for resilience. I felt the psychological and scientific explanation quite reassuring, and with a sense of profound gratitude washing over me, I realized that my best friends in life have always been Maya and Chloe, and I didn't even notice it. My sisters are the sense in my world. Our friendship, in its intellectual depth and unwavering support, was a testament to the enduring power of human connection, a vital force in the face of adversity. This is for all of us who today celebrate the intricate nature of friendship and sisterhood as we viewed it all through the lens of children who experienced early trauma with an integrated scientific understanding of trauma with a holistic appreciation for human resilience. My narrative interspersed with my observations. My experiences, shared in the intimate setting of my childhood apartment and my mother's friendship with Mamacita, demonstrates the active, conscious effort required to build and maintain resilience. The dialogue reveals the shared understanding and mutual support inherent in their friendship, positioning it as a crucial external factor in our journey toward overcoming the lingering effects of our past. Our narrative concludes with a hopeful affirmation that through enduring connections and conscious self improvement, the detrimental impacts of trauma can indeed be mitigated, paving the way for a more stable and fulfilling future. The scent of soft baked cookies and freshly cut bread still clings to the edges of my memory, a sensory anchor to a time when the world felt immeasurably vast and brimming with possibility. I remember the thrill of the swing set, its rusted chains groaning a familiar song as I propelled myself higher and higher, feet brushing against the autumn sun in the sky. It wasn't just the physical act of soaring, it was the feeling of absolute freedom, the belief that with enough effort, I could touch the clouds. These moments, seemingly small, were the quiet architects of my resilience. I'm remembering a conversation my sisters and I had when Ruby was finally out of our home and out of our lives for good. You know, I remarked, my voice a soft yet hopeful murmur across the breakfast table. I was thinking about the South Bronx Kids, a marching band my sisters and I were part of. I am so glad we got to be baton twirlers. Can't wait to go to practice tomorrow. Maya and Chloe chuckled, spooning cereal into their bowls. Can't wait is an understatement. I'm surprised you're not twirling in the living room. We were so proud of Mom. Although we talked about baton twirling, we spent days watching Mom, gradually detaching from Ruby. Mom never went back with Ruby. As my sisters and I argued over which cereal was better, we sensed that Mom chose herself instead of being with Ruby, who almost killed her. So we continued arguing over Captain Crunch and honeycomb cereal. I smiled internally as my nervous system began to pat me on the back with a sense of accomplishment, even when things were a mess. Indeed, those childhood experiences, the unvarnished, unfiltered immersion in play and exploration served as a foundational negatives like Kodak exposures for the adult I would become. The scraped knees that healed the triumphs of imaginative quests, the shared laughter over minor mishaps, these were not just fleeting moments. They were deposited into an emotional and psychological bank, building a capacity for perseverance and a belief in the possibility of overcoming challenges. This brings me to the concept of trauma, as defined within the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual of Mental Disorders, 5th edition DSM 5. Trauma, in this context, refers to exposure to actual or threatened death, serious injury, or sexual violence. This exposure can occur through direct experience witnessing the event, learning that the event occurred to a close family member or friend, or repeated or extreme indirect exposure to aversive details of the traumatic event. The physiological and psychological responses to such events are also critical to understanding. One such response is the fight or flight response, also known as the acute stress response. This is an involuntary, automatic reaction that prepares the body to confront a threat, fight, or escape from it, flight, nervous system. This is a primal survival mechanism. In children, particularly those exposed to repeated or severe traumatic experiences, this can manifest as hypervigilance, according to the DSM 5. Hypervigilance is an elevated state of sensory sensitivity and an enhanced state of awareness. Individuals exhibiting hypervigilance may be constantly on guard for danger, easily startled, and find it difficult to relax or concentrate. Their brains are wired to anticipate threats even when no immediate danger is present. And this can stem from the repeated activation of the fight or flight response, leading to a persistent state of alert. Maya pointed to a photograph on the wooden wall unit in Mom's apartment, a faded image of us as children, beaming at the camera. Look at us there, so uninhibited. I wonder if the things that happened later, the not so good memories, can never truly erase the impact of these good ones. I don't think they erase them, I replied, meeting her with my big eyes. I think they layer over them, like a new coat of nitre paint. You can still see the original colors underneath if you look closely enough. And the foundation, the strength that was built in those early days, is still there. It might be tested, it might be strained, but it's not gone. We carry those early joys, those early triumphs within us. They become part of the resilience we draw upon when facing the difficult parts. The warmth of the morning sun filtering through the kitchen window seemed to bless the enduring light of those formative years. The memories of our singing and dancing, baton twirling as we counted how many trophies we each had. The shared laughter in our pajama party sleepovers. They were not just nostalgic memories. They were active components of inner landscape, providing a steady, quiet strength, a reminder of our capacity to keep joy close and our accomplishments that had been nurtured in those early, unburdened, and burdened days. The sight of children who have endured trauma is both heartbreaking and inspiring. Their faces, etched with pain, also hold a glimmer of resilience. They stand tall, determined, their eyes shining with a fierce determination. Their hearts and minds may bear scars, but their spirits are fierce, a piercing reminder of their strength. They walk with purpose, a sense of duty ingrained in their every step. They are the teachers, the police officers, the financial advisors, the very people they needed when they were children. Their presence is a testament to their bravery, their ability to rise above their past and become beacons of hope for others. They are a reminder that even in the darkest of times, there is always a glimmer of light, a light that can guide others towards a better future. As they grow up, they carry the weight of their past on their shoulders, their minds replaying the horrors they had to endure. Their touch is cold and distant, a protective barrier they have built around themselves to keep the pain at bay. They move with cautiousness, as if afraid of being hurt again. But behind their guarded exterior, there is a deep empathy and understanding born from their own experiences of suffering. They can sense the pain in others and are able to offer a comforting touch, a gentle hand on the shoulder, or a reassuring hug. They have a heightened sense of touch, able to pick up on the slightest changes in temperature or texture. They use this sensitivity to their advantage in their chosen professions, whether it be teaching, policing, or financial advising. They are able to read people and situations and use their touch to diffuse tense situations or offer comfort and guidance. But sometimes the weight of their past becomes too much to bear, and they retreat into themselves, seeking solace in their own touch. They know the power of touch, both for good and for bad, and they use it wisely, knowing the impact it can have on those around them. This is for David, Belinda, Julie, and Jesse. I love you. I love you, Mommy. This is for us.
There's something about this beat that keeps reminding me of my New York City dreams. I remember I was only 17, literally a dancing queen. Forever young, I thought I'll be. 'Cause I remember living rent-free excessively. I remember in summers had never pretending to be. Oh, I remember someone I'm not instead I choose to see. I remember I love my loving energy.
Yeah, dead in the middle of the boogie, we was younger playing hooky like Bonnie and Clyde, they better book. Those were the days, all fun and games, skipping the fair, catching the train the way it took.
How I remember.
Step through the city in these Harlem nights, all the lights had me feeling like my game tight like Ray Rice with the Scarlet Knights. I used to roll the dice, gamble with my life with so many things I never thought
I
twice.
remember.
Tony eyes used to get mad from the block parties and the riff-raff, leaving all the trash in a gift bag, drop it off, leave it on the stoop while we ran off and laughed in cahoots. All fun and games till the gig is over, bumping Criminal Minds till the bridge is over. I remember the battle ciphers gathered in Crotona. In Africa, Bambaataa really showed us how to master the track. Not only that, but how to master your path. I could never break dance, but I mastered my craft. Getting my hands on Paid in Full was a classic to have. And the rhyme goes on, I perfected the jab, blending some jazz with some boogaloo. From one into another on the tables, yelling copy cool. Remember, like it's out the blue, deja vu. This ain't a dream if it happened to you.
There's something about this beat that keeps reminding me of my New York City